Hello, welcome to the Math Together show where thoughtful math educators gather and learn together. I am Molly Vokey.
I'm Dr. Sue Looney.
And I'm Heidi Subdani. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're really excited to have you here.
Yes. And we are going to talk about students of color today. Yay, Black History Month is right now. So this is our question today. How do we support students of color in the mathematics classrooms? We're going to explore that with two brand new authors. So that's so exciting. Or maybe they're not brand new to being an author, but their book just came out anyway. So exciting. And so if you're here joining us today, please say hello, hit like. We love to see what people are thinking about while we're talking, so please chime in at any time.
Yeah, and we also will go to those comments with a raffle that we have later. So if you want to be entered into a raffle, if your comments are in that box, then you get to be entered into a raffle, which would be for a copy of the book. And just a little bit about us. We are Looney Math Consulting, and we help school districts improve math instruction. And we are currently signing up new partners that are looking to go on that journey with us in the 2020 and 2021-2022 school year. And so, Molly, if you want to go ahead and advance that banner to the website, you can find us here and just let us know.
Additionally, we have resources that come out regularly about once a month. And if you would like to get on that mailing list, you can do that most easily by texting Looney to 22828. And that will put you on our mailing list where you can join the conversation around math education that is going on and get some free resources that might help you in your classroom and continue that work with your students.
Yay.
And we are going to be taking some questions in the comments. So as we've mentioned already.
Yay. And now Heidi gets to introduce.
Yes, we have to go on.
Yes.
Okay.
And now we have to read. So
yes, now we have to read. So now we're ready. Okay. We are so excited to have Dr. Eris Winger and Dr. Pamela E. Harris joining us this evening. And so I'm going to read a little bit about them for those of you who might not be familiar with their work. Dr. Eris is a native of Washington, D.C. He's an assistant professor of mathematics at Georgia Gwinnett College. His current area of interest is equity within the mathematics classroom. And his last few projects have all been in areas of increasing visibility of underrepresented populations in STEM and in particular mathematics. Those projects include an NSF-funded Building on Strengths, DET-M, and the leadership role at the Center for Inquiry and Equity in Mathematics. His participation in those grants has centered around conducting professional development with educators to recognize their role in creating classroom inequities. His current work is centered around equity in the classroom, social justice mathematics, and culturally responsive teaching. He lives in Atlanta with his beloved wife and daughter. Dr. Pamela E. Harris is a Mexican-American mathematician and associate professor in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics at Williams College. She received her BS from Marquette University and MS and PhD in mathematics from the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. Dr. Pamela E. Harris's research is in algebraic combinatorics, and she is the author of over 50 peer-reviewed research articles in internationally recognized journals. She's an award-winning mathematical educator. Dr. Harris was the 2020 recipient of the MAA Northeast Section Award for Distinguished College or University Teaching, the 2019 Henry L. Adler Award for Distinguished Teaching by a beginning college or university mathematics faculty member, and the 2019 Council on Undergraduate Research Mathematics and Computer Sciences Division Early Career Faculty Mentor Award. She was also selected as the 2020 inaugural class of Karen Ulbrich Edge Fellows and was one of the 50 women featured in The Power of Numbers, the Rebel Women of Mathematics, which you may have heard us talk about in previous shows. Her professional mission is to develop learning communities that reinforce students' self-identity as scientists, in particular for women and underrepresented minorities. We are so thankful that they are willing to be here and give of their time and discuss their really important book with us this evening. So welcome, Dr. Winger and Dr. Harris.
Oh my God, thank you very much.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, so great to have you here this evening. We know how long these days can be and how busy you are doing your important work. So we really are honored by you being with us this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Awesome.
So we always like to start the show with this question because it allows our viewers to get to know you a little bit. So we always ask, what is your why? Why education? How did you get to be where you are?
Yeah, so again, thank you all for having us. I really appreciate it, giving us a voice. You didn't have to do that, but you chose us, and I just want to say thank you again. I got into mathematics, because I was always valued in mathematics, right? And so, early on in my life, I was doing multiplication facts faster than a lot of other people. And I was uplifted in that, right? And so that meant that I started to feel good in association with mathematics, right? And as I got older, that continued, and I started to make sure that I kept that identity, right? And in the darkest of times, specifically when my father passed away, it was a really hard time for me when I was 11 years old. And I really held on to that identity, in junior high school for a while. And so mathematics was always a place where teachers had recognized that I was good at it. And then, it just became something where I needed to hold on to that as a way of it being my safe space. And so as I got older, I then, started to reach out and look at other things, open the world, really deal with some of the trauma and pain that I was going through. And then, went to Carnegie Mellon University and got my PhD there in mathematical sciences. And then I left that place as a mathematician. And then over the years, through transformational projects and work, I started to understand that I teach people instead of teaching mathematics. Right. It's that fundamental change, changed my life. And so, and really just thinking about how is it that I can make what I believe is such one of the greatest subjects in the history of people visible to people who have often been left in the margins. Obviously, my walk as a Black man in this world, colors that, no pun intended. But it's one of these things where now the question becomes for me, how is it that I can create a space, no matter how small it is, where some people, more people than 2 years ago, can look at a little Black boy and say, you know what, they can be a mathematician. Can look at a little Black girl and say, yes, they can be a computer scientist, right?
Wow.
Well,
I know.
My story is completely different. So I appreciate so much that Eris always reminds me that there are times where we are valued in mathematics. And for me, I became a mathematician, and I say this and I mean it, by sheer accident, which is ridiculous, because like, who goes and gets a PhD in mathematics by accident? But it really was. Right. It's like PhD. Yeah, but my story is different in the sense that I immigrated to this country when I was 8, and then again when I was 12. So obviously the first time things didn't really work out for my family moving to California from Mexico. And in that process of going through an educational system in 2 different countries, from first grade to 12th grade, I went to 10 different elementary, middle, and high schools, like 10 different schools. And so I never got the chance to develop my skills and to be noticed and to have somebody say, you know what, you're kind of good at this, you should continue. That didn't happen until I got to college. And when I started college, I was undocumented. And so I started at a community college, and placement tests put my academic skills, my mathematical skills at about an intermediate algebra level, which is basically the stuff that I was doing when I was in 7th grade. 8th grade, 9th grade, right? Like, I didn't understand that multiplication and addition were in fact 2 different types of mathematical operations. And so it took me building up those skills really from nothing up until getting a PhD. And in that process, I finally just had professors who said, oh, you should just take the next math class. You know, it wasn't like you're going to become a mathematician. It was just like, just take the next one, just take the next one. And so all of a sudden, you know, I'm like, I finished all the curriculum at the associate level. And then somebody says, you should go to Marquette University. My father was a professor there. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going there. And then the same thing happened when I was graduating from undergrad at Marquette. My professor said, when you go to graduate school. And then I was like, what is this thing you speak of? Okay, I guess I go there. And I mean, I went to the military academy.
It's the yellow brick road for you.
Yeah,
huh?
Yes.
no, it was like people were paving it as I was stepping on the stone.
Wow.
And so I am very cognizant of the deep lack of identity as a mathematician that I have experienced, because I never saw other people that looked like me as mathematicians.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so my why has been developing around this idea that if we see it, we can be it. And so I've been
Yes.
focusing on bringing to light all of the work that Latinos, Latinas, Latinx, Hispanic mathematicians who have been around, I just never knew of them. And how do we bring to light all of that work? And so there's a lot of work that some friends of mine and I have been doing, working with Latisms, so LATHISMS.org. You can check that out. I forgot to populate the link. But yeah, so that's my why. My why is no child who is underrepresented should ever feel like they can't be a mathematician simply because they've never seen one.
That's right.
That we need to eradicate. It's time.
I think it's this,
Yes.
right?
MS.
MS.
MAS. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I just think that's so interesting, and thank you both of you for sharing your stories. Pamela, for you, was there something inside of you that you still found the courage to take that step? Like there had to be some self-efficacy coming from somewhere, because when someone said, oh, what's this thing you speak of, graduate school, like you didn't say no. Like,
This is a great question. And I don't think that it was in fact self-advocacy. It's just so being an immigrant, first generation college student, all I knew was that now that I finally had an opportunity to go to college, like I mentioned, I was undocumented. And when I finally got an opportunity to really pursue a career, we weren't having discussions over a dinner table about how you become a mathematician. You know, my parents, due to circumstances beyond their control, they were only able to finish up to 9th grade. And so it was just, you know, you graduate high school and my parents were like, our job is done. Success.
We did it.
Family success. We did it. And so I just thought my professors know best. If whatever they tell me to do, I will just do, because I don't have anyone to bounce ideas off of. And so when they said, take the next math class, I was like, yes, I will. And here we are.
Yeah. So deep sense of trust, right? There's some trust there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Completely blindly. So had I taken a biology class and a biology teacher told me to take the next one, I would be a biologist. I mean, there's no doubt about that in my mind, that the power that we have as educators to transform, to shape, to direct some of our students' lives is beyond measure. And so we have to be really cautious about how we do that. And so even though I am extremely happy with the kind of life that I live, there is a little sense of loss in, you know, and what Sue, you were saying, like, was this self-advocacy? And it was like, no, I just did what I was told because I knew no better. And so I have to be careful that I'm not doing that to my students as well, that I do ask them, what is it that you want to do with your life? And how do I help you as your math professor to get there?
Yeah, no, and what you remind me of is two things. You took the words right out of my mouth about the power of the educator, but then I wonder if we go back and ask your professors whether they knew that you were lost, that whether they would know that. And that reminds me of how we need to look at our students who we may think have it all together, when in
Right.
fact they may be very lost, right? There's a sense of innocence that we have to have about our young people, even when they're 22, 23, that this world is difficult and hard, and that we need to assign a level of innocence. Now, that doesn't mean that we patronize them, but it means that they are trying to figure themselves out while at the same time trying to do 16, 17 credits. They're
That's
trying to, navigate this world as a 15, 16-year-old in the K through 12 space, when all these things are against them, right? We need to return a sense of innocence to our students, for sure. And that allows us then to then ask those questions, how are you? And not make these assumptions.
That's right.
I'm wondering, so both of you mentioned this idea of, Eris, you were saying how someone saw in you, like, so you were able to, and so your teacher saw that in you. And so like, maybe less directly, Pamela, in your situation, they said, oh, just go take the next one. But it's this idea of seeing and valuing, and how I think sometimes we struggle, particularly in K-12 world, of seeing and valuing that, and how do our positions as educators, we are put in really powerful positions that influence children in ways that we do not necessarily, we're not always mindful of. I'll leave it at that for a moment. So we're not always seeing that that's a critical piece. And in both your cases, it happened to work well, thankfully, but like, in how many instances is that not the case? So
many instances. And let me just be clear. I've come on this show in part to respond to that very question. And so, first of all, we know the answer to the question is we value everybody. We value everybody, right? Period, across the board. That's what we're supposed to know. The answer to a question is we should value everybody, right?
Yes.
And
He's
so
not
we know
saying that that's happening. He's
that's
saying
right. No, I know it's not happening.
That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So I like your phrasing of, it happened to work out, but let's be clear that Pamela and I hit the correct benchmarks to be valued. And so I'm very clear in that I was multiplying fast because we are addicted to fast multiplication as a marker of being valued in K through 12. And we must stop doing that, right?
Yep.
Or either we do that and we find other ways to value young people if they cannot multiply fast, right?
Correct.
And so what I'm advocating for is a fundamental transformation, a radical imagination in which we can find ways of valuing every single child. In other words, how is it that a child can come into our space and not do well academically and still feel fantastic? Right? How is it that in the midst of this system that forces us to put a letter grade, forces us to put numbers to people's performance, that they can't help because they're not mature enough to understand that that's not tied to their self-worth? What do we do to interject on that? What do we do to disrupt that? What do we do to negate that? Right? These are the types of questions we have to be asking, because valuing so far, how you get valued in classes is way too narrow. Way too narrow.
Agreed.
And I, almost more so in mathematics. I know that's like all of our areas, but I think it is particularly an area where culturally in the US and in other parts of the world where we have this idea of it's only for a select few.
Yes.
And so when we're looking at our students, are they all mathematicians? Do they all have that capability? And we all say in education world, oh yes, but like, no, like we're not really thinking that in the back of our minds, because our attitudes and our actions show otherwise in so many spaces.
But
Getting
even
to our question.
But even if you're trying to do the work that Aris is talking about, we are a part of structures that are dismantling for many students who look like either one of you, and many others. So we need to start tackling that structure.
Yes. And so I think that's right. And so what Pamela and I have been working on is that in the face, because here's what we believe in the face of those what seem to be immovable structures, we still have those proverbial closed doors for an hour and 50 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes every single day with our child. And that time is still our time, and it can still be transformational, right? And so, yes, so in other words, what would happen if those structures never change? Could you still reach your child?
Yeah.
Could you still change their life?
Right.
Right. And the answer, we believe the answer is yes. Right. And
Yes.
so, yeah, but so, and also because these structures are there, what does that mean for us? That means that every day we have to be interrogating, because the structures are there every day and they're telling us every day. So we have to be fighting every day.
Yeah, and I think this is what we talk about in the dialogues of the book, right? We talk about, first off, not having to convince other people that the work that you're going to do in your classroom is going to be impactful for your students. And that's really easy to say coming from being a college educator, right? Where I do have a great sense of autonomy in what I cover and how I cover the content in my courses. And so what I would offer to those who are under somebody's thumb, because we understand how the system works, is that you still have the power of your voice.
Yes.
And what you choose to do with it can really be influential. So it might not necessarily be like, be faster at these multiplication facts and these division facts, but it could be continue to be kind to a child, even when they are struggling with something, right? So like, how do you make space to talk about, you know, challenges that students face when they're struggling, right? Like we talk a lot about productive struggle, but that's easy to say as grown-ups, to tell a child, like, you have to, it's gonna be fine, you know, struggle, you'll eventually get it, when they have to go home and show that report card. Right? Like, it's very easy to sit up on a high horse and then just tell a kid like, yeah, I also struggled, and then just kind of move on. But how do we use our own lessons in our own life when we struggle to bring that into the classroom? And so let me give you just one quick example of something that one time happened to me. So, and you know, now I'm being too honest maybe, but you ever go to Target, you know, you go to a store and then you kind of tally up how much your bill is going to be. I don't know if you do this, but you know, I'm like, okay, I owe about $35. You know, when I get to the register. Oh, I still do. I mean, I'm not making money moves that I don't count my stocks. You know, I'm like, pair of socks, $6. You know, like I know exactly how much I'm going to owe at the register. And in fact, you know, I sometimes play this game with my partner, and I'm like, what do you think the bill is? You know, and like, but he don't know. I've been adding the whole way. So what happened is I get to the register. Now he knows. Yeah. You know, I get to the register and the bill is about $12 under. And I'm like, nah, something's wrong here. And, you know, I hold a receipt as I'm walking out and I notice that I didn't get charged for something. And so I'm like, I had that moment where I could just walk right out. It ain't gonna beep. It ain't gonna beep. And then I remembered that I had to face my students at West Point. And at West Point, our model for students, for cadets, is a cadet does not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. And I thought I have the perfect opportunity right now to hold the line. So I went and I told the lady at the register, you didn't charge me for this. And it was like, I've never seen this happen ever in my life. All right, here you go, you know, pay the additional amount. But again, think about, you know, I'm giving you this example because then I showed up to the classroom the next day and I got to have this conversation with my cadets. And I got to say, you know, because of you, I am a better human.
Oh my God.
And so what lessons are we as educators taking from children and implementing them in our own lives? So when you talk to a child about productive struggle, when you talk to a child about, you know, the value of learning these multiplication facts, you know, how do we interpret what we've gone through and like actually live by it day to day, continue to be kind, continue to uplift? And so, yes, we have standardized tests that you need to prepare children for, but how do you use your voice to uplift and make sure that you're there to support them when they most need it? And so I think that's where Eris and I come in and we're like, well, there's got to be some incremental change. You know, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and be a completely different human being. It's not going to happen. But if you make small changes, consistent, and we call them 5%, you're 5% every day, every single day. Eris tells it all the time. We know about exponential growth.
Yes.
You're going to be a much more better prepared, kinder human, better educator, you know, 1 year from now. And so that's what we're proposing here. that we all do our best to just make small incremental changes to really better serve our students.
Wow.
And
let's put up our key question and get into those steps.
I'm like, did we already ask this question? Because
That's
Well, we
start answering it.
We are answering it. So in this question, you talk about what orientation we have to have.
Yeah.
And what are the steps we have to take? And so I wonder if we can speak to, it's really a two-part question. And I almost wonder if the orientation needs to precede the steps, or are they simultaneous?
Oh, yes. So, and let's be clear, we're trying to do the two things. We're trying to do this authentically. We're trying to do this for real. You can't fake this, right?
Right.
So then the first thing we got to do is go get a mirror. Oh my goodness. How much time we got left?
Listen, bring it, Eris, bring it.
We have to get a mirror. And so we have to say that we have not been doing this well. Right? Individually, I have not been doing this well. And it's because we live in the United States of America, where people of color have been treated a particular way. And we've been doing that, in our practices. I, in my practice for over a decade, have left people of color in the back of the classroom, literally and figuratively, right? And so I've centered white men in my classrooms for so long because that's what I saw as a mathematician. And so for me, I have to start there, right? What are the things we have to admit? What are the things we have to say? What is the level of humility we need to get to in order to say that these are my failings in this area and I want to do better, right? I want to do better and to understand what your why is, right? And so anybody who dares say they want to become a better teacher and they're not working on this, I just don't believe them. I just don't believe them. And anybody who has people of color in their classroom and they are not deeply, researching and thinking about what it means to be a person of color in this country, I don't believe you, right? And I say that that's a loving critique, that you cannot have people of color in your classroom and just act like, and then not think about what it means to be a person of color in the United States of America, right? And so for me, you've got to be able to interrogate what you've been doing, think about this work as something that not is extra, but is something that you have not been attending to your whole career, and then get to the work of trying to figure it out. Now, what does that look like? That looks like anything else. What if you wanted to learn biology tomorrow? What would you do? You would go get a biology curriculum. If you want to learn about how to, deal with people, interact and love people of color in your classroom, then you need to start reading books and start understanding what that means, right? All while paying attention critically to how you're behaving.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just that that moment in time too, right? So I think we have instances, let's say, this summer and then during Black History Month, or then so we have these moments where we have flashes of accountability / introspection versus doing the long and hard work of, okay, so this is something that I'm going to consistently and intentionally interrogate in my own practice over the course of the rest of my career.
Yes.
Right? And so I think at times there are moments of awakening, and depending on the situation that we come from, those things are so critical, right? So like each of us has our own background that we're bringing to the table, and our understanding of that is going to be, so my experience as a first generation American is going to be different from your experience. And so in each of those instances, our backgrounds impact, but how open are we to the experiences, and how intentional are we, and how willing are we to listen? I wonder about that more and more. And in your book, you're looking at it as a dialogue. So it is this back and forth, but that fourth, right? I'm hearing you and taking in, not just, well, currently I'm just talking, but that talking piece of it, it is a listening. A dialogue is a listening as well as a speaking.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I was going to say that.
We all want to talk. I'm
Go
going to
ahead,
give you a
Pamela, you go.
number.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think there's something really important in what Heidi's bringing up, that, you know, the events of the past year have highlighted the fact that we are at a critical juncture in history. And as educators, we get to decide whether this is the time that we're going to do something different. Like, and we, as people of color, we've been telling y'all that the time has been passed. Like, it's just, the time has been there. But sometimes things need to get that bad until we're actually going to do something about it. And so what I worry a lot about is those you know, educators who are now at a complete loss. They're like, I see that there's something I should do, but like, what do I even do? First off, pick up our book. You know, we talk about it. We guide you through questions. You know, really, it's about self-reflection. And I think that piece is something that's so critical. Like, you need to self-reflect. Like, why now? Like, why did it have to get to this point in your life for you to think that now it's the time to help and to do something differently? Because I also don't want faculty to be in situations where they're going to be like our saviors, right? Like, there's a difference. And so I want us to be cautious of that. But I think it does require self-reflection, and it has to be deep. And then you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. You know, we talk a lot about this in the dialogues. Like, we have been uncomfortable our entire lives in these spaces. Be willing to be and experience discomfort mildly, where you just don't like what we say, and you close the book and you sit there and you think about why you are feeling such discomfort. But then come back to it, come back to the work, continue figuring out what it is that you need to do differently in your practice to make sure that students of color are not falling by the wayside. And center us, right? Like, we talk a lot about doing work that benefits students, but how is that actually benefiting students of color? Right? Like, when you think about helping students of color, do you just default to students? And do you forget that our experiences are different? And so centering that aspect can be really, really challenging. And so build a community of people that is going to help you along that way. And so Eris and I started recently a Facebook group. And so I'm sure we'll put the link for that. But, you know, we're hoping that we just started it very recently. So we're hoping to get much more active in it, but really having these deep conversations. You know, something happens in your classroom and you just need some immediate feedback from someone who's also really invested in advocating for students of color in the mathematical sciences, within math and education. And so we hope to see more folks join, and really let's form this community where we uplift each other and help each other be better.
Well, and it's that willingness to like be uncomfortable and take positions that that go contrary to or make people feel uncomfortable. I'm just thinking you had mentioned earlier, it's like that idea of going home with grades. And so thinking about what we do to should second graders have letter value grades? Like, okay, that may be your system.
Yes.
But like, and we've all taken that on at different points in our world. Like, that may be your system, and you may not feel it's appropriate for you right now to take, but why not? Like, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we are like every foundation of education is no longer there. Why not? Why not take it on now? Why not be really disruptive in the work that we do? And that makes it uncomfortable for adults. Changing my grading structure, changing my who owns power with my classroom, that makes me uncomfortable. That doesn't make kids uncomfortable. Like, that's about me as the adult, not about who I'm serving kids. Like, going to an administrator and saying, like, this is not right. That's uncomfortable for the administrator.
That's right.
And briefly for you, or not so briefly, but it's not uncomfortable for kids. What's uncomfortable for kids is then tying their identity in mathematics or as a learner to a letter grade that has no value outside of that space.
Yeah. But when we don't speak up in those moments, the children are all watching.
Yes.
Oh my
And
goodness.
they're getting a particular message about
That's
how
right.
safe they are in my presence.
Yes.
And she doesn't see me because she just allowed that to happen without a response or a dialogue or whatever needs to happen. And so when we choose status quo, and I think it's something like 87% of the teachers are white. And I'm sorry, I don't, you,
No,
I
it's in the
is
80s.
it more?
No, it's in the 80s.
So,
It's in the 80s. Yeah.
so most of our educators are white and most of the population is not. That's not the right breakdown. And so when a white educator sits there and then doesn't address it and sits with the status quo, it sends a message that I am not seen and valued to a child.
Yes.
So we don't actually have a choice if we are going to take deeply to heart that we are working in service of children.
Yes.
We are here to serve children. This is, if that is not white, then you are in the wrong field.
You're absolutely right. You're in the wrong
That's right.
field.
Yeah,
If that is not the default, then get out.
That's right.
You're
And
just causing damage.
if I can give a corollary to that, it's clear. So if you have Black children in your classroom, if you have Latinx children in your classroom, and you are not deeply investigating what it means to be Black and Latino in this country, then you should also get another job.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, because we know that children have come from all walks, and we need to be aware of that for sure. For me, my failings have been across the board. My failings have been with differently able people. My failings have been with trans people who, have transitioned during the semester, and I did absolutely nothing with my practice to get that, So it's one of these things where, we have to go back and look at those things and say, I could have done better here, right?
Yeah. But that's it. One of my favorite things in your book is like the most basic question ever. What kind of person do you want to be?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, really, that could be the name of your book, because if you answer that question any other way than good and loving and kind, then like really you should not, going back to that, you should not be a teacher. You should not be working with children at all.
Yes. And what I think we're hoping to add is that from just what we've been talking about during this time, we need to add courageous. We've got to add courageous, because people, the wrong people have co-opted nice and kind and loving. In other words, people have taken the courage out of love. People have taken the strength and power and anger sometimes that love may require, right? When you're defending a child, damn it, I'm angry because I'm defending this child. That's love at a high level, right? So the love that we're talking about is multi-dimensional. So I think we need to add courage to that, only because other people have just made it way too nice. Because look, I've seen a lot of white nice teachers, let's be clear, who are doing some really terrible things in terms of not seeing everybody. So nice is not, the kind is not enough for me these days, because it's just been, because too often I've seen too many people be like, oh, hello, welcome to my classroom. And then everyone says that person's nice, but that person's only looking at this group of people. Right.
It's also passive, Eris.
Yes.
Right. If we're actually going to be advocating for students of color, it requires action.
Yes.
It requires action. So this nicety, this like kindness, this like let's all just get along, that's super passive. And it continues to center people who are already in dominant groups.
Yes. That's powerful.
Peace, and sudden destruction. As I always think of, it's that idea of let's keep it calm, let's keep it nice, let's keep it safe, let's keep it status quo.
Let's keep it comfortable.
Let's keep it
That's
comfortable.
what that really means.
No, and also ignore the impact.
Correct. But
because
like we're causing destruction
to
when
be
we
nice.
do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to move from whatever intent people have to the actual impact of what they're doing.
Yes.
So I want to talk about how we help people go on this journey, because I can tell you that there are likely people listening that are like, yes, but I don't know how to do that.
Absolutely right. Yes.
And because they've
Oh, in fact,
never
somebody's
experienced.
asking right now, where do I start? I'm a white middle
Okay.
class woman. I have no idea where to start.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
And so fabulous for asking that.
Yes,
No,
and centering
Jane.
her race there, that's important. Yeah, absolutely. So, no, I mean, you should join the group for sure. And then, I think this is not work. I think we write about this in the book. I had mentioned how I spent, when I look back and realized that I had done some things I wasn't proud of in my discipline, I spent some time just sitting with that before I started to reach out to other people. Right. And just really started to read and reach out to other people, connect and educate, and look within. So it really, for me, a lot of ways, it's those three things. Look within, make some admissions, get really humble, find ways to educate yourself and connect to the right people and continue to have the conversations. Right.
It's that humble piece is becoming humble. It's the exact response you want from being courageous, right? So you have to first be courageous and step out of your comfort zone before you can be humble. And that is a two-step process, which some people are not willing to take.
Yeah, no, it's hard. Yes. Yes, that's right. Yeah, so here we go. So everybody listening, can we just say to ourselves, I have not been a perfect educator, right? I have not been. Now, say that to yourself. I already know I haven't been.
Definitely
right?
guilty.
Yeah. Can we say that first?
Today.
Yeah, that's right. Whenever.
Today in homeschool, it happens.
That's right. That's right. And so let's start there. I haven't been perfect. And then the real question is, who have I left out? And we got to get there. Who have I left out? So in our professional learnings that we run across the country virtually now, we always got to go there. Name the person, initials, whatever it is. Who have you left out? And then when you make it personal, when you see the face of the person, of the child, of the innocent person that didn't get everything that they were supposed to get from you, then for me, that was life-changing. That was the anchor that I needed to make sure that I can keep the fire going and keep doing this work.
So there's a couple of things people can do, because I want to this is an unending conversation, right? Right.
We obviously will have to have them back.
So we put up your Facebook group, and we'll put up a few more links, but the book is a really good place to start as well, because it's actually a workbook in my head. And by that, like, I want to show you. And I also am really funny because I refuse to write in it, but
mine has some writing in it.
Yeah.
So you fill that out. Like, this is not passive, that word passive. This is a great place to start out. And so if you purchase the book, you can use that as a starting place. But then I think finding people to go on that journey with you is critical. So just sitting alone with my book is not going to do it. So I highly recommend, paying attention to these two amazing educators, to Aris and Pamela, and following their journey, listening to their podcast, joining their Facebook group, and, take it a step further if your district is interested in having them virtually stream on in. We will continue the conversation at Looney Math. We haven't stopped having this conversation since we met each other. But we will support you in that journey as well. But we are not as well positioned as the two of you are here. So we want to encourage you to do those things.
But that just means we should work together. That's all.
That's right.
We can learn from each other. That's it. That's all that means. Yeah.
Jane,
excellent.
Jane is making some awesome comments. She's already joined your Facebook group, and she says, I love Jane. She says, I know that Jane. Question, who have I left out?
Yep.
So
yes.
No, and that's that piece. Like, and thinking about, like, there, I can picture it right now, right? Like, so within my classroom, in like, and I've known that, like, it is, but it has been that. How am I I'm interrogating myself in that several years past.
Yes.
But how am I doing that every day within the classroom?
Yes.
That's right.
Right. So because, like, there are times that we are going to miss that opportunity, or we are going to, we're going to have a bad day ourselves. And and not realize that. But then how do we go back and fix that? How do we go?
Yes.
How do we not continue that? How do we disrupt that pattern? I think is really critical. So we are putting up your podcast. So it's and some other links to your materials. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us about what you're working on now that people can find out more about that and learn more themselves?
Yeah, the podcast is out today, brand new and fresh. The first one of the year. It's episode 7. You can go to minoritymath.org and find the past 6 episodes as well. So yeah, we're always working on that. And then we're trying to build a community because this is, as you'll see in the book, the book is a result of some webinars and some professional learnings that we were given to the mathematics discipline. And out of that, the questions that it's called Asked and Answered. The questions that we're answering are from the mathematics discipline. And so after that webinar series, we just said, this cannot end. We have to, we believe that we can create a critical mass of people that can change the discipline, right? But it requires the courage, and, courage is hard, but if we have each other, we can each be courageous at different moments, right? There are times in which I go cower in the corner too, right? But then Pamela steps up and so forth, so.
Yeah, it is absolutely about community. We're going to make change in the discipline by actually leveraging the strengths that we each carry. And so you don't always have to be carrying the heavy load, but you have to be able to pass it on to somebody who will. And so building that community is really going to help us change things for the better.
Awesome. Well, we are all in.
Yeah.
We are allies in the work, and we are so happy that you came and talked with us this evening, and that you do what you do. And that you authentically have shared your stories. So thank you so very, very much.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
So we're gonna wrap up with sort of where we're headed next. And I will now toss and turn and be deep in thought after this.
So much work to do.
Yeah.
And we will be continuing that conversation within the Looney Math community and the Math Together community. There are several other, I would say too, if you're looking for resources, if you go back to several other shows where this has been a continuing theme for us, where we want to think about and intentionally look at our work as educators within communities that serve Black and Brown children. And so take a look there as well. If you'd like to get on the mailing list, you can do that at 22828. Or at looneymath.com. And then next week,
Yay!
we are
very exciting guests.
I know.
Yes, we have the fabulous Dr. Nikki Newton coming, and we are so excited to bring her and her energy to that discussion. So we thank you all for being here. We look forward to future conversations, and we hope that you all continue to stay safe and be well.
Yes. And remember to always be curious.
Yes.
Good night, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.